Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Sunday, November 29th, 2020, and today we're going to be talking about certain regions of the country that we didn't see much of a focus on following the 2020 presidential election. This is going to actually be a part video, so this will be part one. I'll be going more in depth in future videos. We'll be talking about not only the presidential race, but some surprising ballot initiatives such as legalized marijuana in South Dakota, or a couple of other things that are being discussed and that were shown to us in the 2020 election that didn't exactly fit what we initially thought about a certain state, about a certain region of the country, and we're going to go through that. But this is going to be focused on parts of the 2020 election on the presidential level in terms of the presidential results, what was surprising to us, what we didn't really expect to see, that actually ended up being different than what the forecasters projected, or if it matched the forecast projection, how it was different from that same region in the country or how other swing states moved. So we have around 5 areas to take a look at, a number of states to look at, but these states have really been under-discussed. We haven't really been mentioning them whatsoever, and I really think they deserve some attention because they have gotten either closer or moved in a certain way. That's actually pretty surprising. So the first state, actually, I want to take a look at is not a swing state. It's the state of Alaska. Donald Trump won the state of Alaska by a mere 10%. I say that because John McCain, Mitt Romney, and Donald Trump in 2016 won Alaska by even larger margins. Even George W. Bush in 2004, in 2000, even in 1996. So this state has had a long history of voting overwhelmingly for the GOP until recently. Now, a 10-point margin of victory is not super small, but it is reminiscent of where Texas was 4 years ago. It is reminiscent of where we saw a number of other battleground states 4 years ago. And when you're talking about Alaska, the fact that it only voted for Trump 2 points more than Iowa or Ohio really puts this state into perspective. A 10-point margin of victory in a state that used to be solid for the GOP really needs to be noticed. This is a 4-point swing from 2016. This is a 4-point swing. That may not seem like a lot, but by the time we reach the next election, it's very possible Alaska is within single digits and in turn targeted by the Democratic Party. If current trends hold, Alaska will be closer than Ohio and Iowa come 2024. I don't know if that doesn't surprise you. I don't know what will, but Alaska, this state could actually be on our radar for swing states. Now, I don't think many candidates are going to want to spend time leaving the continental United States to visit Alaska. It would make much more sense to visit, I guess you could say, continental swing states, but Alaska's 3 electoral votes and close elections have shown us in the past that anything really can make a difference. And I think Alaska may actually be one of those swing states in the future. This 10-point margin of victory is a warning sign for Republicans because Alaska has shown us they have elected Democrats in the past. They have elected Democrats on the statewide level, whether in the governorship, whether on the House level, whether on the Senate level, and the House maybe way back when, but still very competitive races. Let's say there isn't an incumbent running for re-election. That race could be hotly contested. So Alaska showing us that it's closer than expected and also closer than South Carolina. You know, closer than Mississippi, closer than Missouri, Indiana, Montana, all states that were competitive. One of them went to Obama in 2008. One of them was less than 1%. Missouri was decided by 0.1% in 2008. But both of those states, Missouri, went to Trump by 15. Indiana went to Trump by 16. Montana went to Trump by 15. So this state, particularly Alaska, should have gone further rightward, or at least should have been more rightward than it already is. And that just simply was not the case. It was almost single digits. So Alaska, moving past there, let's go ahead and move on to a bunch of states, actually, a cluster of states, Democratic states, that voted for Joe Biden by pretty significant amounts. But that wasn't always the case. In 2016, Hillary Clinton won Colorado by nearly 5 points, won Minnesota by less than 2%, won New Hampshire by just a little bit over 2,000 votes, won the state of Virginia by 5 points, despite her running mate being from that state. Now, Virginia has voted for Joe Biden by double digits. This is the first double-digit victory for a Democrat in Virginia in over half a century, since Lyndon B. Johnson. He was the last Democrat to carry Virginia by double digits. Colorado voted to the left of New Mexico in this election, despite voting for Hillary by 4 points less than New Mexico 4 years ago. Minnesota and New Hampshire weren't even called until days after the election. They were called on election night. New Hampshire, let's take a look at this state in particular. What drove Biden's turnout? What drove Biden's margin of victory in this state? We saw a bunch of pundits actually looking at this New Hampshire call and asking, why did this happen? Why did New Hampshire already get called for Biden? when there are states that were in Biden's column now were not called initially? Well, that's because New Hampshire voted for Biden in a way that we hadn't seen them really jump on to Clinton. Clinton won this state very narrowly. Donald Trump's comment in 2017 referring to New Hampshire as a drug-infested den, I mentioned this comment numerous times when making a prediction in New Hampshire. And I think that comment really stuck with those people. Now, not to say that Americans are single-issue voters. There are single-issue voters in America, but I think that many things impact the way that people vote on the presidential level. But that comment could not have helped Donald Trump in any way. When you're targeting a state, when you're targeting a group of people, they're likely not to vote for you. And when you're looking at New Hampshire, I think that comment actually was something that was a playing point for a lot of Democrats. That may have been 3 years ago. But Americans, while they are easily forgetful, when you see a political ad about a candidate that's running that you are possibly going to be voting for, calling your state a drug-infested den, if you approve of your governor, if you approve of your state body, whatever it might be, you may view this candidate now as an automatic negative. And I think that's really what hurt Donald Trump in New Hampshire. But it wasn't just New Hampshire that actually shifted to the left. Minnesota shifted to the left by a pretty significant amount. Even Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, which flipped in this region, didn't even shift by as much as Minnesota. That was pretty surprising. Minnesota continues its streak as the current, I guess in modern history, the longest Democratic voting streak in modern history. Minnesota, even more Democrat than before. This can be attributed to Biden's overperformance amongst the white voter demographic across this country. It may have hurt him in Florida, losing those minority voters at the expense of winning over these white voters. But white voters make up the majority, overwhelming majority of the electorate. If this was a congressional body, it would be the supermajority. They make up 67% of the electorate, 70%, depending on the election you're looking at. So Minnesota, I really think that's what helped Biden. But also in Colorado, we see a large Hispanic population. We see a large white population. But this state shifted leftward like we hadn't seen before. Think about it. 4.9% margin of victory for Hillary Clinton. Look at this margin of victory for Joe Biden. Larger than New Mexico. Isn't that crazy? Are you surprised? I'm surprised. When I saw Colorado getting called on election night before Nevada, I was surprised. When Colorado was called before New Mexico. When Colorado was called before Rhode Island. That's when I knew something was up about this state. And we really don't discuss it much. And Virginia, the final state on that list, I said it was the first double-digit victory for a Democrat since 1964. And Joe Biden did what many people thought was impossible 12 years ago, which is not only win the state of Virginia, but absolutely, do very well. Because the reason why I think this 10% margin in Virginia is different than the 10% margin in Alaska is because Alaska was never a swing state. Virginia recently has always been a swing state. Except this time, Virginia voted more to the left than Alaska did to the right. To put it into perspective, Sarah Palin was from Alaska. There are a number of Republicans from Alaska that were on the ballot that won re-election. But for whatever reason, Donald Trump wasn't able to win over that group as much as Biden was able to win over the people in Virginia. And Virginia has been a long-standing state that has a very traditional Republican history, actually, that has only recently moved over into the Democratic column. And I think moving forward, the GOP is probably going to stop focusing on this state. Looking at the 2021 governorship, I still don't see it. Even if it is an opposition year to Joe Biden, which it will be, I still don't think the Republican Party is going to carry that race. But we will see. That's set to occur in just a little bit under a year. The next state that I want to focus on is actually not a swing state again. It's the state of Utah. This state voted for Mitt Romney by 48%. This state voted for George W. Bush in 2000 by 40 points, even more so in 2004. 2012, Mitt Romney won it. Absolutely large margin. In 2008, it was closer than it was closer than it was in 2012. But 2016 rolled around, and something different happened in Utah. This state has a very high Mormon population, and I would say as a result has a very high moral standard in terms of how they view their candidates. That's why they elected Mitt Romney to the Utah Senate, despite him being not from the state. He had a home there, but he was a governor from Massachusetts, so very much a Northeasterner, claimed Massachusetts, held his campaign HQ in 2012 on election night in Boston, but moved to Utah, now serving as a senator there, elected in 2018. In 2016, we saw Evan McMullin, a conservative independent, running on the same ballot as Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. He received almost the same amount of votes as Hillary Clinton. As the Democratic nominee in one of the most powerful political parties in this country, she only received 7% more votes than an independent who was unknown relatively 3 months before the election. Evan McMullin took away a lot of votes from Donald Trump. And the reason for that is because these voters did not feel comfortable electing Donald Trump. The majority of the state did not vote for Donald Trump in 2016. He received 48% of the vote in Utah. This time he received 58%. But wait, Evan McMullin received 20% of the vote. That was a conservative vote. Gary Johnson received some of the vote in Utah as well. These are conservative voters that didn't vote for Donald Trump this time and actually moved 10% of that electorate to Joe Biden. Joe Biden gained 10.6% relative to Hillary Clinton. And while a 20-point margin of victory is strong, when your predecessors were winning by 48 and 40%, that's not good. That is not a good sign. This state could be telling us that while these voters may be very right-wing because of their religious beliefs, very right-wing because of what they have shown us in the past in their electoral history, may be more inclined to vote for Joe Biden than they were to vote for Donald Trump, just because of the fact that they may not view Donald Trump as a moral candidate, may not view him as a nice president. And while, like I said, a 20-point margin of victory is not laughable, that is obliterating Joe Biden in this state, but it's Utah. And this state should not have gained this many votes for Joe Biden. The fact that Biden did way better than Obama twice, better than Hillary Clinton, better than Gore, better than Kerry, yeah, I think that this state definitely deserves some recognition. And I think that really shows that maybe some of these Republican endorsements paid off in some of these states. I don't think it made a fundamental difference, but maybe in some of these more Republican states, we saw Biden's numbers increase for just that reason, because Evan McMullin actually did endorse Joe Biden. So the final two states I want to actually take a look at are Iowa, Ohio, and Nevada. I don't know why I said 2 states, 3 states. These are 3 states that remain relatively unchanged from the 2016 presidential election. Guess what the margin of difference was between 2016 and 2020 Nevada? Less than 0.1%. Not a single notable shift in this state. The reason for that, we saw 25% more voters than 2016. But the reason for that was because Joe Biden's loss with Latino voters, Hispanic voters, was offset by his gain amongst white voters. But in Nevada, it's roughly equal in terms of the electorate. And as a result, it ended up with a victory for Joe Biden that was the same exact margin as Hillary Clinton's. And I think that is just very interesting. Nevada, unchanged. Iowa, also unchanged. Donald Trump won this state in 2016 by 9.4%. It voted to the right of Texas in 2016, and it did the same thing this time. Look at the margins. It actually voted to the right of Texas. Now, this time it actually voted for Trump by 8.3%. So that's a shift of 1 point. But that's still not that much. Look at the 2012 county map in Iowa. I don't have it on my screen, but you can go ahead and Google it. Go look at the 2012 Iowa county map. There was roughly equal blue and red districts. Now look at it. What are there? 6 Democratic counties? That's insane. The shift in this state is insane. This entire region, really, almost this entire region had voted overwhelmingly for Obama. But when you're looking around, Trump absolutely obliterated Joe Biden in this area. Absolutely obliterated him. When really, if we were looking at a victory for the a Democrat in Iowa, it would be on the backs of these voters, as it was for Obama. But for whatever reason, they were Obama, Trump doubled down 2020 voters. So Iowa, unchanged. And Ohio also has changed by 0.1. Voted for Trump by 8.1% in 2016, voted for Trump by 8 points in 2020. Nothing changed. Nothing changed about these 3 particular states, and we don't talk about it much because it doesn't fit a certain narrative. But for whatever reason, we saw counteracting support where Biden may have gained amongst white voters but lost amongst minority voters to a point where it's evened out in Nevada, where he didn't really have much influence in Ohio and Iowa. Ohio has been correct for 60 years and was wrong this election. Broke its streak as a bellwether state. Vigo County, Indiana, broke its streak as a bellwether for the entire country. Vigo County has voted correctly in every election since 1956. In every election except for 2 since 1888. 1888, and it was wrong this election. And it has lost its bellwether streak. It has lost it, and I am not going to look to Vigo County, Indiana to tell me how the race is going to go. Because they have always voted with the presidential election winner. But look at that margin. It wasn't even close. It wasn't even as if a few thousand votes could have made a difference. I mean, actually, considering how small the county it is, a few hundred votes could have made the difference. This county in particular has always been right. Always been right. John King references it. A lot of political pundits reference it because it has had a strong history of being correct, except for now. And that's a very unfortunate thing for that county and also Ohio, because that state has always been right. Not a single Republican has won without Ohio. And as we've seen now, that streak also continues because Donald Trump is not a winning Republican. So those are all of the states that I think we should take a look at. I think that these are really not discussed as much as they should be. They show us electoral trends that we didn't really expect to see. And while some of these other swing states may have been okay, we understand why they moved and they were expected shifts, some of these states really gave us surprises and threw us for a loop, voting more leftward than they did in 2016. And then other parts shifting absolutely nothing. It was just some of these states were surprising, and I think that we need to talk about them more, and that's exactly why I'm expecting to do another part 2 of this video. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my 2020 post-election videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.